Catalog and Cocktails. It's your honest, no BS, non-salesy conversation about enterprise data management with tasty beverages in hand. I'm Tim Gasper, longtime data nerd, product guy, joined by Juan Cicada. Hey,
Tim,
Juan.
how are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well.
Well, it is always a pleasure for people listening and taking a break of your day and just listening to us and chatting about data.
For those who are watching, we've got the Austin skyline behind us. We're downtown right now.
And yes, we are honest, no BS. We are recording, so we haven't done a live episode. We'll keep doing them once in a while. But hey, I am super excited to have Danielle Crop, who is the EVP of Digital Strategy and Alliances at WNS. She's a former CDO of Albertson. She's a former CDO of American Express. We met in person at the CDO IQ conference over the summer, and I think we just connected so quickly on the honest, no BS-ness of what's going through our heads. Danielle, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, we're excited to have a lot of conversations, and I wonder where we're going to end up today. So
excited to have you here, Danielle. It should be a fun conversation.
I'm happy to be here. I'm always happy to have a honest, no BS conversation with Juan.
All right. Well, yes. To kick it off, I know it's early in the day, but what are we drinking? What are we toasting for? Or what is the latest thing that you have been drinking? I think it's probably another question we should be asking.
Well, I'm pretty well known for my classic gin and tonic. Usually with Hendrix or Botanist or any of those great gins, but I'm always willing to try a new gin. But it's pretty early in the day, so I'm just having some sparkling water at the moment.
Awesome.
Well, I'm actually I've been having a lot more gin and tonics lately. I got a bottle of gin Murray, I think it is, and I've just been having different tonics. Actually, something I need to try more is test out with different tonics and then actually limes, and then I really love cucumber. I like to put cucumbers in it. That's always a great thing. How about you, Tim?
The Fever Tree Light Tonic is by far the best.
Ooh, okay.
All right, I got to try to make sure I get that one.
So lately I've been experimenting with different ways to make Negronis just to try to get a different flavor profile. So one of the things I've been noticing lately is that, Campari can be a little strong, but if I cut it with a little bit of Aperol or something like that you add a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of an orange flavor to it. So so Negronis have been my thing lately.
Well, I'm actually... there's a little bit of beer in my cup, so I'll be sipping on this while we chat. So, all right. Well, let's. What do you want to toast for? Anything you want to toast for in particular today?
Let's toast for the closure of the Capgemini merger with WNS, the acquisition. Last Friday?
Oh well, cheers to that. Actually, a little bit of a story for us was when we met and we were at the CDO IQ conference. That was literally, I think, the announcement of both Data.World being acquired by ServiceNow and WNS
getting acquired by Capgemini.
So here we go.
Yep.
Here we are again, having a conversation at the same time. Well, all right, let's kick it off. Honest, no BS. I mean, AI is obviously everywhere right now. Your soapbox, when we ask you, is probability isn't intelligence, it's math. But now everything seems so magical. There's investments everywhere. There's layoffs actually happening a lot too. Where's your mind at right now with all of this?
So it's in a couple of different places. So, and I've got my thoughts out there if anybody's curious on a Substack called The Technology Remix. But on these areas, one is the aspect of probability and all of the just, AI apocalypse kind of thinking that's going on at the moment. And I just like to remind folks that actually we've been through much of these things before in the past, whether it be the PC revolution in the 80s, which was a productivity miracle that created, massive total factor productivity boom in the 90s. And we're seeing similar numbers in total factor productivity happening now in comparison to the previous years. So there's a lot of hope to look forward to in, the productivity with these numbers. But also just the idea that, there's also parallels to the 90s, .com bubble, right? And that we are getting a little over our skis, I think, and what we think. So while I am totally positive about the effect that AI can have for the future and that it's also had in the past, right? Because this is generally not new. I'm also looking at it and with the Amazon layoffs, et cetera. And yes, absolutely. In the developer world, these tools are massive increase in productivity. But I still feel like we're getting over our skis, and there's a lot of challenges to come in really making this technology work to replace people. I just still am like, I'm in this every day, trying to, and working to implement agentic use cases, and I still am not seeing it replace people's thinking, right? Like it's still like it's a fantastic tool. It's an absolutely amazing, wonderful tool. It's a brand new shiny hammer, and I know we're all really excited to use it. But it's still just a tool, and it has to be wielded by people to do advantages for people. So I still think we're getting ahead of our skis on how much we think this is actually going to affect the short to medium term. I really think that we have a long way to go in the transformation with AI and with generative AI in particular.
Yeah, I think that's a good framing for things. It's interesting. You gave a few different analogies there of things that have happened in the past that we might draw parallels to. One of them was like the PC revolution. Another one is the .com bubble. And that's an interesting one to me because, I've been thinking about this a lot. I know you have. And there's been a lot of articles coming out recently on news and things like that, talking about like, are we in a bubble? Like, is this a bubble? Maybe it is a bubble. Maybe it's not a bubble, right? Because they see, people announcing like billions of dollars going into data centers full of AI hardware and things like that, and major acquisitions and partnerships and all this kind of stuff. And obviously the hype, companies that are involved in the AI space. Interestingly, with the .com bubble, when that burst, there were people at the time saying things like, oh, the internet was bust. That was stupid, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, in retrospect, those were very stupid things to say. Like, of course, the internet was not stupid and bust, right? But we did have to go through that hype cycle, and out the other end came all these amazing companies that are based on the internet, right? And e-commerce did succeed. It just didn't succeed at that time. It succeeded a little bit later, right? So when you think about some of the things that are, a bit overhyped or overcomplicated, what are the things that you especially look at or like, okay, we're overhyping these aspects?
Well, I think that there is some interest. I think we're not overhyping it in the long run. Just back to your point on the 90s .com bubble, like in the long run, obviously that was massive, right? But I think in the short term, people are once again underestimating the change management involved, but also just the aspect of, adding back in the 90s, you add .com to your name, like pets.com, right? And all of a sudden you get these massive valuations for like with no actual business model underneath of it, right? And I think we have some of that going on in venture capital, et cetera, with these companies with .ai.
Yeah,
right?
is the equivalent
with .ai is just,
yeah.
So,
.ai or your chatbot has a name and therefore.
Exactly. And so I think that that's where there winners in there? Absolutely. Right? Are most of them winners? Probably not. Right? So I think that's where how we proceed forward and understand which companies really have the right business model and thinking, which ones have a there, right? They're not vaporware, they're not demoware. They really have very strong capabilities. It's still to be determined, right? Particularly in the startup space, whether or not there's, who's going to win in the software as a service space versus hyperscalers. There's just a lot of uncertainty, which I know is like way on everyone in one way or another, and I think is somewhat contributing to these layoffs as well, right? It's when uncertainty happens, but there's an interesting mix of uncertainty and almost apocalyptic thinking with also super optimistic thinking about how much this is going to reduce in headcount requirements, and it's an interesting moment in time that I don't think, even though I think there are analogies in history, I don't think we've had these things converge together in my lifetime, right? Where there's like this, because the PC thing and the .com bubble were at different points in time. They weren't happening simultaneously, right? We weren't having this massive productivity increase along with this whole, who's gonna, are we gonna have massive layoffs? I mean, they thought there was layoffs in the 80s as well, but they didn't materialize.
But that was something that, if you think about the PC and the .com, it was about productivity. It was about new ways of opening up markets. Of we can now sell things in a new way.
You don't have to have a brick and mortar. You can sell anywhere.
But we weren't thinking about like, oh, this is actually taking jobs away. It wasn't such a center. And today it's about productivity. It's about new markets, but we're adding this other thing that we hadn't thought about, which is like, oh, it's taking jobs away. And I think that's why everybody's now kind of like this is a new world right now. So actually, you as a former chief data officer, like what is your advice for folks listening right now from at the penthouse of the chief data at the C-suite chief data officers, but also kind of practitioners kind of in that entire building, like given this kind of new world that we're in, what is your advice for people to start paying attention to? Like what should they do? What should they stop doing? What should they do more that they're not doing enough today?
I think that my advice to folks like in the chief data officer role or in the C-suite in general is to avoid the .com bubble-ish type of thought process, is to really focus on your business capabilities that you've always needed for your business, right? The things that are essential to driving value for your business, and keep an eye on those and build your proof of concepts around those things, and not based on like edge cases or what an individual comes up with as like a cool idea. Keep things really focused on where you're going to drive top and bottom, and focus more on top line if where you can. I think a great example of something that we're doing with some of our insurance partners is we're building capabilities that could not have been economically done in a viable way in the past. So a good example of that is recovery as a service. And so these are, insurance scenarios in which there was so much paperwork involved, so much unstructured data involved, that it was really not, if you had to have a human being review it all, it was not really economically viable for how much return you were going to get. But today, with the new shiny hammer that we have, which is amazing, we're able to review those documents, come up with a point of view, and go after and recover those dollars. And our promise to our clients is that we're gonna take a cut of that money that we recover, and that's our pricing. We're not gonna charge you for anything else. We're just gonna charge you based on outcomes. And I think there's a lot of use cases out there that are like, okay, we always had this as a business capabilities challenge problem, right? We weren't able to do it before, but now we have this new tool, and now we can do it economically in a great way. And I think if more companies focus on that type of scenario, it's a win for everybody, right? Because it's stuff that just wasn't happening before at all.
And I think this is the kind of the approach of thinking about what was quote unquote impossible before, or to the point that if it was possible, it was extremely kind of expensive, that if you do the math, it wasn't worth it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've been seeing this also kind of with just migration of old software. It's it's just to do that, it was too hard, or you need all these people to go do it, the things works and stuff, right? Yeah, it's a maintenance cost, but now we actually have this shiny tool who can kind of figure this stuff out, and then finally the economics for this stuff works. This is an interesting approach to start thinking about. It's what was quote unquote impossible before, but now it is possible, and plus that, and then make sure that the economics work. And I think that's kind of a new way of starting to go show value there.
Yeah. Well, what about data practitioners or folks that are more boots on the ground in data? Do you think that they should be taking certain things away from what's going on right now in AI?
I think that the actual practitioners so I'm going to be a little more specific with talking to modelers, right, that are out there. I think that while LLMs are fantastic and have their place, I think the future for business is in small or efficient language models. And I think that that's where, a lot of companies and modelers should be focusing their attention. I think both from an economic viability as well as a sustainability perspective and an accuracy perspective. Those models are much more predictable because they've been ring fenced on a smaller amount of data. And they are just, less likely to have issues. They're still going to have issues because probabilities always are going to have an error rate, and an LLM or an SLM is based on a probabilistic, mass structure. So there's always going to be hallucinations. It's just a matter of how much can you contain those and drive the right, information to the right people to make great decisions. So I think that that's the future more than, well, I think LLMs are great. And I know OpenAI is focusing on a consumer play, and in a consumer play, the accuracy is, important, but not as important as, say, like if you're trying to do an underwriting use case for a business.
So this is a good segue into your soapbox message, right? Probability isn't intelligence; it's math. So your point is, and I think kind of just to unpack a little bit here, what I'm seeing also is was it last week or whatever? OpenAI, they both are, for example, they're doing some consumer stuff, they're doing enterprise things, right? They launched this enterprise knowledge stuff, right? They had the Sora app and all that stuff. And we're seeing we're seeing like people, these large AI companies trying to go do everything, but really is like, you should probably, if the needs to focus on something consumer is very different from focusing on things on enterprise. And so for our circle of folks that we talk to who are in the enterprise are like, well, this is where we really want to be very specific and focused, and things like maybe it's not large, it's going to be some small stuff, and why the data is going to be so important to really understand that. So how are you seeing this today? Like, are we going to be having companies because it's smaller, it's going to be easier to maintain, it's less cost, it's going to be less expensive. So are companies going to should be able to train and do their own models because it's something smaller, it's going to be more cost effective? Or you think there's going to be more companies that are going to be doing things for them? Like, how are you seeing this landscape?
I think it's going to be both, right? So I think for the large organizations that are able to, afford to, create the teams and retain the talent, they can, build their own. For the, small to medium organizations, there's a ton of startups out there that are focusing on, building these small language models for particular, let's just call them almost professional areas. We've seen this already in the legal profession, right? There's, compliance, audit, all of these various different areas in which there's a known body of knowledge that is really well accepted on how these people are supposed to do their jobs, whether it be certification exams, whether it be academic, textbooks from the degree programs, et cetera, that are going to be these companions. And the small language models that are built on those are, really quite effective, right? Particularly in combination with people who are already professionally trained to do that work. So it's a force multiplier, right, in those areas, and will have impacts to jobs, just like we've had every major tech jump forward has had impacts to jobs. But I think that, the activity of the productivity coming out, it creates new industries, it creates new capabilities. And the question of whether or not this is moving too fast, that's an open question, right? Like, I still think that we're over our skis and it's not going to happen as fast as people think it's going to.
So the world's not ending in 2 years.
No.
It's always interesting, to your comment earlier, to see both the incredible optimism and the incredible pessimism happening all at the same time at different parts of the tech space and beyond. And
sometimes in the same day by the same person.
And sometimes it's going to be so incredible for us, but then it will take over and kill us all. No, so I think this is interesting how you're talking about this. It's funny how much the pendulum swings and people become obsessed with kind of silver bullet thinking, right? And so obviously large language models kind of came out. There was a period of time, I feel like a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, where fine tuning and training was kind of like becoming very, very popular. Databricks and other vendors were starting to lean a lot into that. Like every enterprise is going to want to train their own models and fine tune, blah, 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 right? And then I think the pendulum swung a little bit and people were like, wow, these large language models, like
we can do everything.
Prompt engineering is more effective than training, right? And things like that. So obviously, like RAG and all these things started to really happen. Vector databases, et cetera.
If you've ever built your own agent, you know that you can RAG it and do all the knowledge base stuff, and you can still have it hallucinate in really unpredictable ways.
It can still not work in the way that you want to, right? Even if you're doing a sophisticated RAG approach. So it sounds like you're saying that like we're going to settle into an architecture that's a little bit more combinational. Like you're going to use an LLM for the thing that it's good for, but then you're going to use, it sounds like you're kind of implying potentially many smaller language models that are specialized in different ways, and then maybe use various agentic architectures, whether automated or with human in the loop, that kind of wrap all these things together.
Yes, I think I think it's going to be like most things in history. The approach that you take is based on the risk of the scenario, right? And if it's a high risk scenario where you just can't get it wrong, you're going to take a different approach than a standard LLM. Even with fine tuning, even with all of those, guardrails, et cetera, all those things, there's still going to be scenarios in which you just can't take the risk.
Yeah. What is your tolerance for hallucination and lack of explainability, right?
The tolerance for, in a legal setting, the tolerance for that is very, very low.
I feel that we're kind of going back and forth and figuring things out until we find that pattern, that repeatable pattern. Because right now it looks like for this particular, there's like a use case or a very specific use case. I want to go do things, but then we're going to be doing that and learning what that works, what doesn't work, and then we'll figure out, okay, here is like kind of that abstracted, repeatable use case it can do, not one very specific. And I think we're figuring that out right now, because in some places you can say, where you go from large language models, you have smaller models, but for some stuff you need to figure out how much humans need to be in the loop for these things, how much of that stuff is actually can be passed to do the probability non-deterministic versus no, this needs to be highly deterministic and stuff, and need to be very specific workflows and queries to databases. Like I think for you, if you look at very specific use cases, you can probably identify that, but we're probably not there yet to figure out how we can abstract this and somewhat generalize it. And I think that's what's going to be super interesting over the next couple of years, because that's how because we know we're going to get there. It's really a time and money problem.
It's a time and money.
More money, we'll figure it out.
And a data problem, right? Like, if we I'm sure you guys saw the little infographic that came out a couple of weeks ago that said that like for LLMs in general, 40% of the data came from Reddit.
Yeah. Oh.
Right. Like it's that should concern all of us. Right. Reddit is not a fantastic environment. It's not a fantastic source of actually reliable information. And the fact that has actually been a heavy source of data to train LLMs should be, a question for all of us about how much we're going to trust it when we ask it, a question. Right. And so that's where I go back to my whole, I feel much more positive about the future of smaller, efficient language models than I do with the, long-term value of LLMs to any sort of business use case. That isn't if it's low risk, sure. If it's higher risk or higher business impact, I think there's going to be a lot more of these smaller language models called by sophisticated agentic workflows to drive outcomes.
So we had the data scientist was the coolest job, the sexiest job, and I think probably lately is probably more the data engineering. It seems based on this conversation, and I think going forward, there's kind of two possibly ones, right? As one more of, let's call it the AI engineer, the ones who are going to be probably doing some of this training stuff. But then there's going to be the data, the data person, not the specific data engineer, but it's like the data steward, the metadata, the semantics, the quality, or keeping track of all of that part of the data, because that's where we want to keep track of how this data is being understood. Because at the end of the day, that data is going to be passed on to the data that's being trained, models are being trained. So I think we're going to have kind of these two types of like the next sexiest jobs that they're going to need to work together very closely. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it sexy, but I call it the data librarian role.
Okay. Well,
Right. But it's like, I think it's a very important role, like understanding, like, you know, and I think we talked about this a little bit this summer, Juan, about like, okay, my dream that we will have some sort of data Dewey Decimal System, right? That, you know, we will have like some way of, you know, globally categorizing, you know, data into, you know, specific understandings of what it is and how much value it provides, and, you know, what kind of, you know, reliability we should be giving to it, and all those kinds of things. And I think we're on that pathway. How long it takes us to get to something that's universal, I don't know, right? Or if we will ever get there, given, you know, the fact that libraries were obviously things that people created to share information with each other, and there's a lot of places in which companies and or industries in general don't want to share information with each other, right? But we're the understanding the data and its value, and whether it's structured or unstructured, is not a job that's going to go away. It's just not, because it's far too complex and large. And let me just add a little anecdote here. I have a friend who is still kind of like a first line data scientist, data analyst, and she is increasingly getting more and more into, you know, as they migrate into the cloud, right? Like, and then she's in the healthcare space. She gets increasingly pulled more and more into managing data quality and doing UAT and all these things. And she hates it, but she's the only one who can, because the people who use the data are the ones who actually understand it. And so these, like, I keep on telling her, like, well, you've got job security, because, right, like, so I think that those jobs are never going to go away, because data is large and complex, and people who actually understand the business and understand the data are really, really important, and will continue. They've been important for decades. They will continue to be important.
So when you think about going back to our topic that we were talking about around job disruption and, you know, will it happen, won't it happen, to who will it happen to, you know, these kinds of roles, these people who are data librarians, data translators, knowledge engineers, you know, kind of next level architects of information, do you think that those jobs are safer is kind of one level as we go forward? And then secondly, do you feel like more people are going to step into this layer that maybe used to be data analysts or data engineers, but maybe AI is helping us actually to automate more of that work?
Absolutely. So I think that's where I would say for those folks to get a little bit more comfortable with like that almost data librarian and or data products work, whatever way you want to like frame that, is because it's like that. Yes, the analytics and the engineering work is going to become, you know, it's going to be able to be automated quite easily. But what won't be able to be automated is actually the human understanding of business context plus data. Unless we actually, and then we can engineer that back in and see how that works. But I'm still a little skeptical in the long run of a probabilistic math-based, you know, system really understanding context, like in the way that we understand context as human beings, because the AI is never going to live in the real world with us, right? It's never going to talk directly with other human beings in the way that we do, right? Like it will, but it's gathering information and then doing probabilities. It's not thinking, it's not feeling, it's not, I mean, I know we have the argument about, is it reasoning? I understand we have the term reasoning, but we can have the philosophical argument about, does it really reason? Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, quick pause here is that I was hoping that we would get into something that we disagree, but we haven't yet. But let's see. We still got time. All right. No, but on this exact point, I'm fully in agreement with you. In the example I always bring up is, wait, if you put a bunch of humans in the room and we may agree on some things, we may disagree on some things and so forth, like, why do we think that and this AI system's going to come in and it's all going to get right and we're all going to believe it? I mean, we don't even get agreement on this stuff, right? It is great. I appreciate the input, but it's just another input in there. So that's one comment. And I think something else that you said right now was like having that shared understanding. And some people do want to have a shared understanding. Other, like across organizations, they may not want to share their understanding, but there's also kind of these incentives of why we want to be able to go have this shared understanding. Nevertheless, I think AI, like this idea that I want to be able to go chat and have these agents and do stuff, like that is now driving, it's a driving incentive to say, let's go share this knowledge. And at least the ones who start doing that first are the ones who are going to start getting all that value out of that. And then I fully agree with that. A lot of this mechanical writing code that is moving data and transforming data, like that is going to get automated. Understanding how to do that transformation to change the meaning from one thing to another one, like that is something that that's more of a human people aspect. Once you kind of clearly figure out what that is, code needs to be written to do that. That is fully automated. That if it's not fully automated today, it will be tomorrow. So I think that's kind of where I'm excited about it. So, but now the question is, becoming those data librarians, is that going to be easy or natural for somebody who is more in that technical data engineer, writing those pipeline codes and making sure that all this stuff is working? And they're like, oh, well, the next job is to be a data librarian. Let me go learn that. Will they be able to kind of upskill themselves to become a data librarians, or is this something that it's actually somebody else's persons to shine who've actually never been in this in the data landscape per se?
I think it's about, if you're a data scientist or a data analyst, right? So the engineers are on one side, the analysts and the data scientists are kind of on the other side, right? So if you're in either one of those roles, what I will tell you, and then tell them either one of those, personas today, people in those roles, is you have to learn the other person's job a little bit, at least a little bit. You have to understand it. And then you also need to understand your broader business context, right? So if you start, the roles of the future are inherently in one person, cross-functional. They are not going to be these like specialist, in a silo type of roles. They are going to be the ones that inherently require critical thinking and learning across domains, because the AI is going to be able to do all of the very clearly defined technical, even super hard technical stuff much better than we can. What it can't do is kind of create a goal that like is a strategic goal that's going to drive business outcomes. Like it can help you research that without a doubt, but like, can it set those things and can it connect the dots across those things? I don't think so. So long story short, everyone says we're coming close to AGI. I don't really know what that means unless they're changing the definition of AGI. But like, it's like, I still think that the reality is that it's just going back to my soapbox. It's a great tool, but it requires a creative human being to make it powerful.
Yeah. Now, I think that your comments about it being a tool is important, and I'm hoping people aren't getting too hard on the hype bandwagon around it. Like, because if they can keep this mentality of business value and the tool mindset, I think we can stay a little more level. One topic we didn't get too much into that I'd like to explore a little bit before we get into our lightning round is the data itself that needs to be, your foundation and the processes around that, right? Whether that's data management or data governance or what that might be. What are your thoughts on this concept of AI readiness? Is this something that it's good we're talking about? Is it confusing? What do you think are some of the most important investments in this AI readiness area?
I think any data-driven project without a foundation is destined to crumble. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's readiness is important, and it's not just the foundation is not just the technology. The foundation is having the culture and the people be ready for the change. as well, right? Like, and all of us who've been in the data world and have been through many migrations in the data world are very familiar with this. Like, it's not just about moving data, back in the day, like moving it to, big data environments and then moving it to the cloud. Like, it's like there's a huge part of that is about, planning it out, understanding how that data is used by the business and to support the business, and organizing it and creating that migration in a way that serves the business and the people. And lots of times in the past that wasn't, it was done to serve the tech, not the people. And then we ended up having multiple different migrations happen, right? Because the tech thought came first and then the people thought came second. So I would say that in this AI readiness space, I think the more we, go back to, okay, it's the people, it's the business outcomes, and then coming back to, okay, what does that mean for AI readiness? Once again, that requires people who can do that translation, people who can cut across and understand business and understand the technology, at least like in a depth that actually is able to be executed upon, right? Understand right. So people who can be that bridge across to understand what does actually AI readiness mean for our business and for our context. And what needs to come first, because it's just not one size fits all. Like, I've read a lot of things about this, right? And like, I feel like people try to create a one size fits all strategic approach. And I will tell you that across the clients that WNS has, there are very different levels of readiness, and how they can get to value more quickly really depends on their business context and where they're at. And it's very complicated. It's not something that's a one size fits all approach, but I think it's a very important discussion.
That makes sense. And I think this has been a learning experience for, I think, data organizations to realize that their discipline is not just a technical one if they want to have impact.
Yeah, and it never has been.
That is the wake up call for folks who think that it's all about like, my strategy is I'm picking this cloud vendor and going that way.
I imagine a meme, there's that astronaut meme where the astronaut is looking at the Earth and the astronaut is hanging out behind him with the gun against his head, where I feel like the front astronaut is like, data was never about technology. It was about the business. And the guy behind him's like, it always was.
It always was. Like, the technology did not, like, I understand that all of our, our Mag 7, it's like they're all tech. I get that. I get why everybody's focused on the technology. And these companies are huge and immensely profitable. But those tech companies wouldn't exist if they didn't serve either a customer or a business.
Well, one thing I'm taking away, a big aha moment I'm having here, is that we talk about being like people who skills are like T-shaped or something pie-shaped and stuff. I think this is a one where like the success of folks kind of in this new AI world are folks who are really going to be T-shaped, but it can go wide on some things, right? Because you can go deep, but guess what? AI will go very, very deep, deeper than you. And what's going to be really valuable is that you can go across the different functions.
Well, and then we haven't even discussed quantum yet.
You know what? This is fascinating that in the last couple of months, conversation we've been having a lot of it. I mean, Tim and I meet with so many executives going around, and then it's suddenly like that after 1 or 2 hours of talking, people's like, and we haven't got to quantum yet. And like, this is the next thing.
and it's coming, and it's coming faster than any of us.
I was like, and somebody's like, wait till we start talking about quantum ready data. I'm like, there's ServiceNow reports already on quantum ready data. So like that yeah. So let's get ready. So probably a topic for us to go start diving into a little sooner than later. But yeah,
talk about another shiny tool.
Yeah. A lot of, and who's already investing, like IBM has gotten, like, I feel that like IBM was didn't get ahead.
And Google just made an announcement. Was it today or yesterday? Like, I didn't get a chance to actually go deeper into it, but I did see the announcement that Google has cracked something else in quantum now. So I'll have to go back and take a look on that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hit to our lightning round questions. And I got the first one over here. So you've mentioned change management is a big issue to get value from AI. Is that a fixable problem or just a constant problem we'll face, something to acknowledge and just face?
Well, it's got its own hype cycle, right? Like the change management curve. So in the beginning, it's always the hard uphill climb when we think of any major change, right? You always have the like communicate, over communicate, right? Like part of change management with the organization. And then it has that whole, it goes up and then it goes down, and then people get used to things, and the changes, it's no longer a change. It's now a daily activity. And so you're gonna, depending on where you're at in the change cycle, like it's right now, it's a lot of change, and it's both technical, societal, like, individual. It's a lot of change, but I personally always go back to the fact that we've been through changes like this before. And generally those changes have had a significantly positive effect in the longer term. And so I think that if people can be focused on that and not focused on the next year and a half or the next 6 months even, I think that we'll have better outcomes if people can just focus on it's going to be TFP is going to go up.
Yeah.
And it's, new jobs are going to be, new industries are going to be created, new jobs are going to be created, and it's going to be great, but it's just doesn't feel great right now.
With pain will come gain, and it's going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
All right. Second question for you. There have been lots of early wins with Gen AI, with unstructured data, documents, et cetera, summarizing, et cetera. Do you feel like we're going to be able to achieve similar success in the near term with structured data?
I think I think we already have. So it depends on the industry, right? So I think there's some industries that generative AI was their aha moment on okay, now, so some of those companies actually learned generative AI and then actually have machine learning. So there's some areas that didn't go through digital transformation 10, 15 years ago. And all of a sudden they're discovering machine learning. And I would say that the majority of actually the benefit is in machine learning from a business perspective. So I would say that don't underestimate, keep going back and doing that. There's a massive amount of value to that. At American Express, we've been doing that for decades. And it drove a massive amount of value. And so I think there's still a lot of value to be had from the structured machine learning world. I think also what I'm curious and interested to know is how do we create new, as a statistician, that was my degree back in the day, right? So I love me a good model, right? And so I'm how do I how is the unstructured data and the structured data? I'm curious to see what the statistician and mathematicians come up with in solutions to bring these things together and create really even more powerful models, right? I do think that that's a possibility with, for example, the small language model example I gave earlier. I think within the large language model, it's much more difficult because you don't know if your model's running on the right data, right? But I do think at some point, somebody's going to come in with new versions of mixed modeling across structured and unstructured data, and we're going to see, and then you add on quantum, and we're going to have some really interesting problems that humanity can solve that it's never been able to solve before.
This is good. The future is so exciting right now. So I'm are we
trying to stay focused on the exciting and
no, the thing is I'm excited because
not on the apocalyptic, right?
Yeah, is today exciting? Yes, it is, but tomorrow is going to be even more exciting. Which one do I keep working now or tomorrow? But, all right, next question. In the age of AI, which role in enterprise is overstaffed? Which one is understaffed?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So I think it depends on the company, but let me put it, say, in terms of overhyped. I think that the chief AI officer is overhyped. Okay, I think we probably all know that. I think that
walk around with a T-shirt that says we should do some AI.
There's some honest, no BS right there.
Right. Do I think that there's a good I'm glad there's focus on it, but I just think that it's it's just not. And I think any chief AI officer would also tell you that like I can't build good models without good data. And so I think the perpetually understaffed team of data governance is always going to be like they're always understaffed. People don't understand their value, which is ironic because like, you know, McKinsey comes out with what, like every couple of years, a new thing basically saying that data governance would solve 80% of the problems, and yet nobody invests in it. So
we love our data governance teams, but the number of conversations I've had where they're like, I just need to hire one more person. If I can just get them to approve this hire, it's like, God damn it, approve that hire. CDOs, pay attention.
It's the crumbly foundation again, and companies do not seem to understand this. Like build on a solid foundation. They don't see the long-term investment of it. I think that's where startups actually have some advantages, that they have the ability to like not do short-term earnings per share thinking, right? And so they can invest in some better foundations. We'll see what happens.
All right, last lightning round question. Today we talked towards the end about AI readiness. Fast forward 5 years from now, have we solved AI readiness?
Well, I think if we have solved AI readiness, we'll be going, okay, what does quantum readiness look like? And it may actually not be 5 years. That may be 2. Who knows? And no, I mean, I think that the reality is that, like, you know, I think saying we're AI, or like, I think it goes back to the whole, like, is your data good? Right? And is what your model is built on? And I mean, I'm an old school statistician. I've been around for a long time. If your data is crap, your model is crap, your outcomes are crap, right? It's just, that's just the reality. And it's like, I don't think that has not changed. Do we have new tools to help us solve those problems? Absolutely. And so hopefully they'll get better, but like you still have to have people focusing on them.
And good is about fit for purpose, and things are changing. Technology is changing. So the purposes and uses that you want to do with your data is changing. And so good changes.
Right.
All right, takeaway time. Tim, take us away with takeaways. We got a lot here.
Oh my gosh, this was an action-packed conversation. I'll try to summarize best I can. We started off with honest, no BS. Your soapbox is kind of that AI isn't magic, it's math. And so we said, where's your mind at? And you said, you started off a little bit of history. You know, we've seen this before, PC revolution, .com bubble. You know, you've seen these periods of times where new technology has come to the scene. We've grappled with how to take advantage of it. Maybe we've got a little overexcited about it. But I think what you've kind of said is important, is remembering that it's just technology. It's just a tool. It has to be wielded by people to do advantages for people. So, you know, we're probably not overhyping things in the long run, but in the short term, we are overhyping aspects of it, and we're certainly underestimating the importance and the need for change management. So I thought that was a good way to start things. Also, you noted that there's a lot of uncertainty going on right now. This has been true maybe in some of these historical episodes as well, but it's uniquely true with this AI hype, where you've got the macro environment that's also all interesting. And then there's, you know, how will AI impact us? Is it going to replace jobs? Is it going to give people superpowers and make them 100 times more productive? Like, we don't exactly know how it's going to affect our organizations. And also, you've got this incredible optimism and also incredible pessimism at the same time about what the future could hold. You know, in 2 years, is Skynet going to kill us all? Or, you know, are we all going to turn into demigods? I don't know. Like, anything is possible. So then we talked a little bit about, like, what does this mean for data leaders and also data practitioners? For CDOs and C-suite, you said that, hey, avoid the .com bubble kind of thought process. Instead, focus on business capabilities, focus on business value. Don't get too enamored with the cool ideas and the edge cases. Focus on the top line and bottom line, especially the top line. Build new things that could not have been done beforehand. For example, in insurance, there's so much work that you have to do around unstructured documents. AI can really help you there. Also, Juan mentioned about data migrations from old legacy systems. Used to be no ROI, right? But now maybe there is ROI. Maybe we can automate enough of that, right? For data practitioners, especially modelers, while LLMs have their place, the future for business is really around smaller models. We spent a good chunk of time talking about what the smaller language models could mean, and the fact that really for to try to manage hallucinations, to try to manage explainability, you're probably going to be using smaller language models, more fit for purpose models in the future, and agentic architectures that tie them all together. So I thought that was very interesting. Juan, what were your big takeaways?
Well, I love the whole roles discussion they had, right? I was like, we had the data scientist, data engineer. What's next? You're saying that you called it probably not so sexy, but I think it's really damn cool. It's a data librarian, right? We need that. You said we need that Dewey Decimal System for our data to understand what value provides, what reliability it should receive, and so forth. Libraries are something that people have created to go share information, but the issue is that a lot of companies don't want to share information with each other, right? The data product work would fall into this category. Something you also bring up is AI doesn't talk with other human beings, and they live who live in the real world. So it really needs to understand that context, and that's where people are going to come in. So what are people? Do people in these data librarian roles? You have to really learn and understand other people's jobs. The roles of the future are going to be cross-functional. They will require critical thinking across domains, because AI will be very good at doing the very hard technical stuff and go very deep. But going across, like, that is the human value right there. And just remember, it's a great tool. And then when we talk about AI readiness, any project without the foundations is destined to crumble. The foundation isn't just technology, and this is what many people think about it. It's technology. It's really culture and people who are ready for that change. Before, we've been always in focus on technology and then people. AI ready is more about people and the business outcomes. Again, data is not about technology. It's about translating. It has always been about the business and the business value. All right. How did we do? Anything we missed?
No, that was awesome.
All right. Well, that's without no AI right there. That's functional going across all this stuff. And I'm looking at my phone because I'm taking notes from my phone too. So, all right. To wrap it up, 3 questions. What's your advice? Who should we invite next? And what resources do you follow?
So my advice is just, enjoy the ride, right? Like, learn new things, like, buckle up and enjoy the ride. Like, it's going to be a lot of interesting fun. And if you're a curious person who likes to learn new things, it's going to just be a great period of time. So get ready to dance with the robots and have some fun, guys.
Love that. Who should we invite next?
I think it'd be great to have somebody from like the VC world on. So I'm going to suggest that you reach out to Graham Brooks at 406 Ventures, because he's a fantastic guy. And I think it'd be great to get the VC point of view out there to your audience.
Awesome. And then finally, what resources do you follow?
All sorts of resources. This is like the downside of the way my brain works at this point in time, is that I get so much digital newsletters, etc., that I don't even remember the names of them, right? Because this is the downside of being, I think, maybe a Gen Xer or whatever. Is like, I grew up with books, actual physical books, and you actually got to see the title every day and the author every day when you opened the book, right? But when you're like reading digital versions of things, you don't get that, and so you forget what they are. But I would say that, all of the big, thought leaders in the space of data, I follow, right? And tons of Substack. I love Substack for getting unique voices. I think there's one that if I remember correctly, called AI Supremacy. That's a really interesting one. But there's a whole bunch of them.
And yours, you call it Technology Remix.
Yeah, I have the Technology Remix, which is funny. So I'm deliberately taking a cheeky approach to these issues and these challenges. For example, the one that I just put out last Friday is what does the 6'7" meme have to do with AI? And I basically just went, it is. If you go back and you look at some of the other nonsense phrases in the past, there is an interesting pattern there about how when things are very uncertain and feeling apocalyptic, people come up with these nonsense things to hold on to, because it's so uncertain, and particularly kids, right? Because if you go back to the nuclear era, right? We had duck and cover, which was total nonsense, right? Like, and then we've got the 6-7 meme now, and that's total nonsense, and the kids love it. I think that there's something from a pop culture perspective that's true in that. The like the uncertainty creates. So anyway, I did a little article on that last week. So basically, I just write on things that come up in my head that I think are interesting and funny. And I take a very different, like they're like nothing in the technology remix is called that because it's the idea is it's like a mixtape. It's a remix.
I love it.
I think we need that lighthearted touch too, right?
Of history and today, and what can we learn? And it's meant to give everybody a laugh because things are so serious at the moment in many ways that I feel like I'm just having a great time writing it. Like it's just super fun. So I hope other people enjoy it if they go read it.
Awesome. Well, our listeners will hopefully go check that out. And Danielle, this has been a true pleasure. I feel like we've really enjoyed this conversation. We've hit a lot of different topics here today, and looking forward to our listeners getting to consume this all.
Danielle, thank you so much. Cheers, and looking forward to our next in-person conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.